Hey everyone, Ryan from Ryan O here once again, and we are now reviewing episode 7 of Masters of the Air. And this episode was really great. I'm really liking the POW scenes so far, and we'll describe some of those in a little bit. So, we are kind of now carrying on from where we kind of left last time. We are at Stalag Luft 3, which was run by the German Luftwaffe. And we are now in March of 1944. And for any of you history buffs, historians, or just say students out there, basically we're only a few months away from the American and Allied invasion of Europe. Basically, D-Day. So we're super close. We see how, like with Bucky's interrogator, we kind of see how the German Luftwaffe at this camp, for now, are treating the American allies with somewhat respect, but kind of like honor. Many of these men, these airmen, see each other almost like knights or medieval knights, and literally they are taking care of one another. Us Americans did the same to the German POWs, airmen. We took care of them. The Germans are kind of repaying the favor a little bit. Kind of, again, to an extent of POW laws back then. We learned kind of from narrator Crosby that Stalag Luft 3 kind of gave these men only potatoes and turnips for the year round. So basically they had the same food every day, which barely fed them. And again, you can already started to see how the men's faces look sunken in, like they're not getting their nutrients, they're not being fed too well. And there's just all these other issues with the camp, like dysentery possibly, just many issues. We are now kind of learning as well that the SS and Gestapo are basically kind of gaining, again, more favor with Hitler at this time. Again, they are basically his hand, his right hand, if you want to call it that. But now he basically wants them to be in control of everything, including many of these camps. So we may or may not see the SS show up so far in this show. We have not seen them. Or if we did, it was a quick scene. It's mostly just all airmen, so mainly Luftwaffe. Two, with these Luftwaffe officers and guards, we see that with narrator Crosby, he's mentioning how at least at this camp, Stalag Luft 3, that these aviators are able to have music, they're able to have books, they're able to kind of get anything they can get their hands on to occupy their time. It's almost like these guards are like saying, hey, we'll give you these items or these cigarettes or posters or music, vinyls, if you kind of just keep calm and be good, like, maintain yourselves, which is very rare from other historical, like, kind of articles and things I've read, where a lot of these other POW camps, mainly possibly run by the SS and Gestapo, treated them harshly, almost like Jews, in a sad way. Many of the Jewish people were seen as inferior. Again, many of them were executed and put in gas chambers and killed in many terrible ways. But other ones were work camps, and they would literally work them to death. And we already can kind of see with some Americans, but also other Allied POWs, that is kind of the same. That they did the exact same thing to them as they did the Jews. Kind of in a funny scene to make it more, I guess, lighthearted, we see two American aviators trying to get a cat out from underneath their barrack. where they're staying. They do get the cat, and they see Buck and Bucky holding like hot water. So they ask if they can share, and basically we now see them eating some soup, like potato turnip soup. But you see little pieces of meat, and one of the aviators is asking questions like, "Rabbit? Is it rabbit? Is it this? Is it this?" And the other guys are just kind of like ignoring him or telling him to stop asking questions. Eventually, they're made aware that it was the cat, so they literally ate a cat, and the one aviator starts vomiting. So literally that food kind of went to waste, unfortunately. But it was kind of like a funny scene, but it's an understandable scene. Again, you got to do what you got to do to survive. And again, turnips and potatoes are not going to do anything for you nutrient wise. We see Buck and his group made a radio, eventually to listen to the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, to listen to any little bit of news they can about the bombings, and just to get any little bit of news. So eventually, we start hearing sirens and men screaming like Germans. They're basically performing strip searches of each barrack building or complex. And basically, one of the guys in Buck's group didn't hide the radio good enough, I would say. You can see like a little bit of something, like a black line or black cord or something sticking out of the leg of the table where they put it in. So that was taken. They're lucky that none of them got killed, honestly. Maybe again that shows that honor and that kind of like, hey, we're all airmen here. Let's be respectful. But I'm surprised. I thought someone was about to die. Buck and Bucky kind of comment how they're lucky that they didn't take the headset or the earpiece. So we're lucky that they didn't find that. We now kind of go back to England, and we're now seeing new crews, new replacements show up, and again, another Band of Brother reference. Even narrator Crosby mentions it, how many of the old guys, even some of the new guys that only survived a few missions, are basically not wanting to talk to any of these replacements, basically of the replacements. They would rather kind of just keep with their own little cliques and their own niches there, I guess. Keep with their own guys, not worry about the newbies. We kind of now see Rosie again. We find out that he's about to go on mission 25, so he's almost about to go home. And I'm like, wait, he was just on mission 3 in last episode. So now we have a huge time jump. So what I'm thinking is that Buck and Bucky and the rest of those guys have probably been at that camp. Well, more Buck and Crank and the other ones have been there maybe for a month or 2 months, and maybe Bucky has now been there for 1 month. If I had to guess, especially because of how much more disheveled they are. But I mean, 3 missions, and all of a sudden now he's on mission 24, about to be on mission 25. If they're still doing missions daily, then maybe it could be less, but I don't know. We'll have to see if they ever do mention it. In this episode, it doesn't really seem like they mention it. They just kind of mention about him getting to 25. So, 2, we see that Rosie, on the other hand, instead of like many of the new crews and older crews that don't want to bother with the rookies, Rosie is kind of helping them or wanting to show them around or give them some tips. He kind of does care for them, and wants to see many of them survive. So we'll have to see how that goes. 2, we also see the 2 guys that we missed that were being helped by the French and Belgian resistance, like I guess the partisans. So basically, they're back now. I don't know how, again, it's been a while. I guess they got to Spain and they got on a boat or something, and now they're back in England. We haven't seen them since episode like 3 or 2 and 3. But basically, we kind of hear from Crosby too that any aviator or any flyer that is shot down over occupied territory or enemy territory, and they are rescued or brought back to England, they basically cannot go back, because if they're helped by the resistance, like we see these two guys were, they already kind of know where the ins and outs are. So they basically get a free ride home, and Crosby calls them like lucky bastards, which I found funny. I was like laughing at that part. But it does make you wonder how many guys did get that luxury. Probably many didn't. But it's just a very interesting scene. Like, I never knew about that, honestly. I mean, I've read about some articles and things before Masters of the Air, like watching Memphis Belle and a few other World War II movies about this kind of topic, with the Mighty Eighth. But I'd never heard about that rule, so it was really interesting. Two, with the time jump of Rosie, I don't know. I just wish they kind of showed us something, and maybe the last week's episode, or gave us a little bit more of a information. Also, too, I'm sorry if you can hear wind. It's really windy outside. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of get bugged out by how many times they do a time jump. But two, we find out Rosie isn't the only one on Mission 24. There is another crew, who he does mention, but I just couldn't write it down in time, and it's hard to understand what he was saying, the pilot's name. But they're on Mission 24 as well. So basically, you have two crews, in the 100 that are trying to make it to 25 missions to help boost morale, which is at an all-time low. We are now back at the POW camp. Buck and Bucky, and the rest of the 100 POWs there, start hearing bombs and sirens, and they start hearing the 88s shooting flak into the sky. Eventually, Buck mentions that, hey, that's probably Berlin, and basically his guess was right. So we find out that the 100th is probably among them, which they were, but now they're starting to bomb Berlin. We kind of go back to Crosby now and his narrating and just seeing him in general. And we're now seeing the aftermath of that mission. And only 15 forts went down. So that's literally 150 men either dead, missing, or some of them became POWs. But they don't really say how many went out with them. We only know 15 forts are now gone, and the crews with them, basically. Two, we start seeing more severe injuries. Like, one guy's scalp was completely removed or off. I don't know how that could have happened on there. I really wish they would have shown that scene. We see another guy looked like he was caught in some fuel. But I mean, you could tell he was on fire. Like, his skin is all black and just charred. But it looked very similar to the movie Pearl Harbor, where many of the guys were in the water. And historically speaking, some of the water was on fire because of the fuel that was leaked out. Even in the movie Dunkirk, they did the very similar thing. And I mean, both of those movies, fuel, guys on fire, they looked exactly the same as this guy. So I don't know, again, if it was just strictly all fire that he was on, or did some fuel get on him and then a fire happened, because they all three looked really similar. So just a little thing I noticed. Two, one guy's basically it looked like his femur was poking out of his leg. So that was a really bad injury. At first I thought he was shot in the artery, but I mean, in his femoral artery. I think this was even worse. I mean, having a whole, almost like your bone sticking out of your leg. So they carried him off. Two, again, learning from Crosby, March 6, 1944. This was now called Black Monday, just because of how many crews died throughout the whole 8th, and possibly other regiments. And again, he mentions 150 being from the 100th. So, I mean, that is a ton of guys, and most of them are rookies. Uh, Again, some of them were around my age. It's like, which, I mean, I'm 25. So some of these guys are in their mid 20s or younger than me, and they're dying or flying in a war. So it's, again, it's insanity what happened during, say, World War I and World War II, with so many young men dying or being injured or being affected by this war mentally and physically. We hear from one of the other, I guess, pilots or gunners. We don't know who he is really, but he does mention that he saw the other crew that was doing their 25th mission, a flak battery exploded right in the cockpit. And he says he hopes the two pilots died quick. Basically, the fort went up, stalled out, and then went down. We don't know if any shoots happened or if any of the guys got out. But then we do learn from another guy that literally he says that the Luftwaffe actually targeted the American parachuters and either shot them or either hit them with the wing or the plane. But he says that literally they killed every American that parachuted, which is a dark scene. I mean, again, you have a lot of the Germans, Luftwaffe, that believe in the honor and the chivalry and like medieval knights, trying to bring all that back. But it seems like some are either desperate and they're trying to minimize how many guys land in Germany or occupied Germany now, which is almost all of Europe, or they're just hating Americans right now. I don't know what to say on that. I mean, but that is insane to imagine, just trying to parachute down and you're getting shot at or worse. Two, we now see Crosby has been seeing Sandra more, and basically having some one-on-one time, if you get my meaning, like physically speaking. Basically, two, it's just a way for Crosby to relax, and like you see how he copes is kind of with, like, I guess, physical contact with Sandra. You see many of the other guys just start drinking. They're basically becoming alcoholics, kind of like how Bucky was in the beginning of the series. Many try to laugh it off again, like comedy, but we just don't know what other reasons are. But we are now seeing, again, more of a psychological toll on these guys. Back in camp, the POW camp, we're seeing now kind of how some of these troops can get their favors by giving cigarettes to other Americans, or maybe bribing the guards or blackmailing guards. We didn't see that in this, but that is shown in The Great Escape, which I'll mention soon. But literally, yeah, we just see how materials are like moved around in the camp to aid one another. Two, mail. Many of these Americans are receiving mail, so basically the Germans, or maybe mostly the Luftwaffe, again with that honor, told the American government, saying, hey, we have all these prisoners, here's their name, rank, serial number. You probably said they were dead. Well, they're not dead, they're with us. So if you could send them they want these belongings and they want these letters or mail, send it to this camp, and they probably did the same. The Americans probably allowed the Germans to send them mail as well, their POWs in America or in England. So now we found out Buck asked Marge to marry him, and she said yes. So now he asked Bucky to be his best man. So that was kind of interesting. Back to Crosby again. We now see him writing letters to the families. I don't know if he was being friendly with them or he's trying to sugar-coated, I guess, like saying, oh, well, hey, he had so many friends. I was one of your son's friends, and he did this, or he made everyone happy. I don't know if that's the case or not yet. I would like to see more letters, or I might have to go back in detail and kind of try to read it. But we just kind of see, too, how that is having an effect on him. But two, we see Jack, one of the other higher up officers that came with everybody in the very beginning, give Crosby a new mission, and it's the exact same one. We're going back to Berlin, the exact same path, the exact same route, and they're gonna probably expect it. So now Crosby's even saying like, they don't care if they kill us all, do they? And I mean that when he said that line, I got like chills. I was like, oh my god, that's actually a true thing. That much of the brass does not care about these young boys like dying. They're just literally are like, hey, meet to the grinder. We basically see the same on D-Day. Sending in those landing craft one after another, like a conveyor belt system, and they said, hey, you guys can move off the beach all you want or not, but there's going to be guys coming in after you, and we don't care. We'll just send them. And they did the same in Japan, too, when they were invading the Japanese islands in the Pacific. Just sending in the waves of guys, and it's up to you to move or not. So, two, we kind of now see the new mission to Berlin. Now they're going into like the heart of the city to attack another ball bearing factory. But here we are now kind of introduced to the P-51 Mustang. So now we are introduced to one of the greatest American planes to ever exist in World War II. This is a much superior plane to the German Luftwaffe plane, to basically the Messerschmitts and the PF-109s. These the P-51s are able to go farther than them. They're able to stay with the forts on basically almost the whole mission. They have a longer fuel range as well, and they have better machine guns as well, too. So basically, many forts are dying and their crews are dying, but these P-51 fighter pilots are actually kind of helping the odds by having less forts die, and they're able to take out more Luftwaffe. So we're able to kind of see that cycle. I did slow it down though. There was like a little quick scene of you see like just a total chaos in the sky, like all the forts, and you see the Messerschmitts go this way, a P-51 goes that way, and they're going at it. And I slowed it down and I freeze framed it. It looked like you saw the Red Tails, the black African American regiment there. So it looks like we're getting introduced to them now in this battle. So this might be one of their first battles or not. I know we are going to see them in this series. I just don't know when. It could be next episode or maybe the next one. I know there's only a few more left, sadly. So I'm not really looking forward to that. But we're kind of noticing them getting into the fight now, too. So we're back to Rosie. He made it to 25, so he does survive the second bombing of Berlin. But then we learn now that Top Brass has increased all the tours to 30 missions. But if you're somewhat of a senior vet, 28 missions. So now instead of 25, it's 28. Unless you're a rookie, now it's 30. So many of the guys are angry at this. They're even saying that, like, kind of like Crosby, like they're gonna want us to die up there. They don't like kind of care about us, which does make you feel sad for them. Like I do feel bad. I mean, especially for the guys in real life, these real life veterans that went through those things. It's just, and I mean, most of them are kids, and I mean, just for them to do what they did, I mean, it's still mind-boggling most of the time. Now we're in March still of March 24, 1944. We get a nod to the movie The Great Escape. Uh, Basically, we see sirens going off. We hear Germans yelling and screaming, and many of them just leave. They leave Stalag Luft 3 basically unattended. So it's almost like they're giving these Americans like that, oh, we trust you, like don't do anything stupid. But they leave, and eventually we find out that all the ranking officers, so Buck, Bucky, and we see a couple other majors, some other maybe smaller officers, or maybe a colonel, who knows. We just see all them lined up in the office of the head of the camp, and he's basically telling them that, hey, and they kind of found out too, prior to that scene, that they found out the British dug 3 tunnels. That's basically The Great Escape, which is a movie as well. They had 80 British/Americans leave. And the German officer, this Luftwaffe officer, even says, hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, and I do mean it, that we executed 50. Or, well, not them, but maybe some other Germans executed 50 of those 80 prisoners that escaped. So it's a real, like, they dedicated almost a year to digging those tunnels, and they got out, and some of them might not even have gotten that far, which is kind of sad. So now that's kind of bringing the pressure down from Hitler, the SS, and the Gestapo onto the Luftwaffe and their camps they're running. So that's kind of worrying. And even the Luftwaffe officer says, hey, we don't want this happening, yeah? Like, we don't want them here. We're treating you kind of fairly. But the SS and the Gestapo are asking for German or Jewish American POWs. And the Americans are kind of saying, we're just American here. We're not Jewish or anything else. We're American. So basically kind of showing again that, hey, the Holocaust is going on. Many countries don't know about it yet. Even some Germans don't know. But kind of from what some of the Americans saw, like Bucky saw, the people waving and trying to get their attention through the cattle cars. And I mean, again, they're not really waving, but they're trying to like ask for and cry for help. That they're noticing, why do they keep talking about Jews, 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 Jews? There's something odd. There's something fishy. So, again, just another nod to say, hey, the Holocaust is going on right now, and you need to kind of keep it in the back of your mind. We now see Rosie re-enlist, basically. He tells the new Lieutenant Colonel, the 100th, that he wants to finish the job. Like, it's not a job that's finished unless he does it. And he does not want to see new replacements die and get replaced by a new replacement. It's like that cycle. He would rather help in any fashion he can, and if he can help them survive, that's what he wants to do. So now we see he kind of gets promoted to, I don't know by rank, if he's going to get a higher rank, but we see he's now in charge of a new or an existing bomb group. And we might see that in the next episode. Who knows? But we are made aware now, too, that why they keep sending many of these forts up every day is mainly because of the new tactic by Doolittle. Is basically just using them as bait. They're using them as bait to draw out the Luftwaffe, and the P-51s can knock them all down. And eventually, it's a numbers game. So they're going to knock them all down, and then America is going to have America and the British, basically, and maybe Canada, will have the air superiority. And then they could just attack anywhere over Europe without a worry in the world, basically. They don't have to worry about the Nazis anymore. They only have to worry about them on the ground. So knocking out one of their pieces of warfare is crucial. And it kind of sucks that they're just using bodies at this point. But that's episode 7. Again, really good episode. Please again, like, comment, and subscribe. I really would like to hear your thoughts about how my videos are doing, and I would appreciate that subscription, so you know that you like everything I do. So thank you. Please watch my old content and my future content as well, and I'll see you all in the next one. All right. Bye, everybody.